Episode 17 starts by rewinding the clock and showing us a moment in Pietro's office, where the genius is rapidly typing away at his keyboard. Ironwood comes storming in, holding a folded paper note in his hands, face alarmed and confused. "Pietro, you had better have a good explanation." Pietro can't even look away, acknowledging the general with a tilt of his head and a raised brow. "The situation is worse than we thought." He motions to the captured little bird thumb drive on his desk. "Whoever our mole friend was left the back door open in the system. Can't tell if it was intentional, but I think we were too late to remove it." Tapping another key, a visual diagram of different systems throughout all of Atlas are displayed on the screen. Ironwood processes this information quickly. "We've been compromised." Pietro nods. "On all surface-level functions, even our scrolls, which is why I had you leave yours in your office. It's a progressive scan setup, so I've been doing everything I can to keep whoever's watching us from catching on that I'm aware. This room's clean for now, but I don't know how long it'll stay that way." Scowling, Ironwood tries to parse more of the information on the screen. "How did you let this happen?" And Pietro glances at him. "Quite simply, they're good. Incredibly good." Squinting further, Ironwood asks, "Then what gave them away?" Another series of taps, and a new diagram is displayed, this one a spectacularly detailed series of files, with a few key ones highlighted. "Booby traps. Set up quite a few for specific information once we learned there was a mole. And surprise, surprise, someone's been awfully curious about sports recently." A definitive tap, and the screen is filled with images and documents pertaining to Amity Coliseum, presumably the files that were accessed. As you may assume, Ironwood is none too pleased. We cut away to a shot of Ironwood walking purposely down a corridor as the conversation continues. "Our security personnel?" Pietro's response is dour. "Skeleton crew. The solstice has got everyone tied up." On screen, Ironwood enters a weapons locker and adds a second pistol to his hip, as well as plenty of extra magazine pouches. His voice is steely. "Can we dispatch?" And Pietro returns grimly. "The code's good. Insidious. Odds are we tip our hand." Visually, Ironwood walks another hallway before boarding a manta and stepping into the pilot's seat. "Do we know who this is?" Pietro's last words as Ironwood takes off are, "I think we both have a good idea who this is." We cut to the shot that ended the prior episode, with Watts smugly smiling up at the partially constructed Amity Arena, his travel bag in hand. The most notable change sits in the center, where the central shaft of Harpoon is under heavy construction, leaving only about 2/3 of the original battleground intact. "Crude," he comments, stepping onto the main plate. "But effective. So like you, James. You have outdone yourself, and done yourself in." Staring at the main console, he flicks a hand, the ring on each finger flaring to life as he does. A shot rings out, and Watts is wrenched forward as a bullet splashes against the aura along his back and shoulder. He spins, just in time to raise one hand of rings, projecting a hard light shield to deflect the second shot. From the shadows, Ironwood emerges, pistol drawn and pointing right for Watts. Strange? I'm not the one that just cornered themselves. Watts glares at the man, both shocked and angered. "You? How?" Ironwood cocks the hammer and replies, "You've always been a good black hat, Arthur, but you were never the best." Around them, and in time to the close-up of Watts' other hand of rings, the arena's lights flash to life, and the arena around them begins to thrum with energy, save for the central cannon. Ironwood's eyes flicker around the room warily at the sudden surge of activity. "And here I was hoping Pietro had died by now, but I suppose sentimentality got in the way of me fixing that." Watts snarks, tossing his bag to the center of the arena, against the pillar-like cannon. He begins to pace casually around Ironwood, as if there isn't a gun trained on him, all while the floor begins to shift and shudder. "How long has it been, James, since you and all of Atlas wrote me off?" Ironwood wisely begins to circle in kind, keeping the gun level the whole time and being wary of his footwork as the arena starts to split apart. As dead or as a lunatic? Watts laughs, loud and bitter. "A lunatic? Look around you. All of Atlas has benefited from my work. I was at the forefront of every field. The marvels of the stadium, of the city, of the mines, my accomplishments. And at the peak of it all, it was ripped away from me by you." Around them, platforms begin to float from the open sections of the arena, connecting and shuffling to form new shapes in the sky, all fueled by gravity dust. Ironwood's stare doesn't falter from Watts. "You wanted to play God." Watts is quick with his retort. "And our dear Pietro succeeded using my work. Tell me, that defender of Mantle you have, How does it feel stealing a dead man's legacy? The general's face hardens further, furious. So that's what this has all been about. Because your inflated ego made you think that you had the right to play God and no one could tell you no. Another laugh from Watts. Inflated ego? Ha! James, look around you! Your work stands upon my shoulders! I've always been in control! Clenching his fist, the transformations shift into high gear, the platform's moving even faster. Ironwood fires a shot, but Watts raises his knuckle, force field appearing to block the shot. What follows is, honestly, a very similar fight sequence to what we got in the canonical Volume 7. The key difference this time around is that Watts doesn't have his garish revolver. Instead, he fights purely using his control over the environment, flinging platforms and force fields and conjuring weather effects like lightning and lava vents at Ironwood. All of this while Ironwood chases Watts across the floating platforms that regularly distort gravity. As this happens, a key thing to note is that the central platform around the cannon has become more or less a service elevator to the main control platform near the top of Harpoon. This location is where the end of the fight winds up going, and the result is much the same as canon. Watts planting his rings and using his Hardlight shield to trap Ironwood's arm. Brushing off his coat, Watts approaches the center of the platform and begins to hack the laser, gloating all the way. Truly a man of poor choices, a child playing general. You want to pacify the world but can't even control your own house. Look at it! Your wonderful kingdom is falling to shambles. I barely had to lift a finger. In fact, your inner circle did most of the work for me. Tell, did the little Rose ever discuss with you what she saw in the lamp? As we cut to Ironwood's confused face, mumbling, "In the lamp?" Watts adds, "What they all saw. I don't think she trusts you, and I think that makes her leagues smarter than you." Ironwood twists and begins to pull at the energy shield. The screen on the laser indicates that it's almost halfway hacked as Ironwood rips free, sacrificing that arm. Watts is caught off guard when Ironwood stomps up to him, grabs him by the throat, and drags him away from the computer. Ironwood dangles Watts off the edge of the platform, exhausted but in control. All of this is kept as Ironwood definitively declares, "I will sacrifice anything to protect Atlas, to keep the world safe." Beaten and bloodied, Watts still manages a smile and a laugh. "Oh, you will. Anything and everything, James. Just to try." Infuriated, James headbutts Watts into unconsciousness and tosses his body to the platform. The camera lingers on Watts' crumpled body, then pulls back to the main control platform where Watts' bag begins to open with inky black smoke behind the central pillar. We cut over to the solstice party at Atlas, where Ruby is zipping around the buffet table, picking at the different delicacies, while Weiss talks with a group of people not too far away, a cheery plastic smile on her face. Ruby's body moves on its own when a waiter passes with a tray of bubbly drinks, and she takes one as a part of her splurge. When she takes a sip, she scrunches her face and says, "Black," before she keeps on sipping at it throughout the scene. Weiss waves the people off and slips back to Ruby's side. I thought the conversations would be far more substantive, but it's all just droll financial talk and bragging. No one wants to talk about anything interesting. Ruby, through a mouthful of food and champagne, mumbles, "Or what?" Weiss rolls her eyes as she plucks the drink from Ruby's hand and places it on another passing waiter's tray. "Dry as it is, I hope you've been paying attention. Connections are important in our field." Ruby, swallowing, holds up a hand like a mouth, mocking Weiss's speech. "It could lead to exclusive contracts, or brand deals, or equipment access. But it's a day off. You guys were all over me about taking one, so maybe we should just go with the flow. Let's at least, I don't know, do some dancing or something? Now that I can, walk?" She points to her flats for emphasis. With a sigh, Weiss relents. "Fine, after the next round of mingling, we can go dancing. But if you step on my feet, I swear to God." Ironically, despite getting what she wants, Ruby has lost focus on the conversation and is now poking her head over Weiss's shoulder. Frowning, she gets Weiss's attention. Weiss?" Catching Ruby's stare, Weiss turns to find her father and mother actively socializing among the crowd. She makes no attempt to hide her look of disgust and contempt, but a resigned look begins to cross her face. Breathing deeply to steady herself, she turns back to Ruby, asking, "Ruby, do you mind waiting back on this one? Concerned, Ruby looks between Weiss and her parents, and Weiss explains before the question is even asked. I'll be alright. Even if I can't open a door like I did with Whitley, I need to try. After another prolonged worried stare, Ruby smiles weakly and pats Weiss on the back reassuringly. I'll be here if you need me. Weiss smiles back before steadily walking off towards her folks. Ruby watches from a distance, unable to hear any of the conversation from where she is. As she's distracted, she steps back towards the food table, only to run right into one of the waitresses. The two bounce apart sharply, and Ruby ends up covered in the drinks the girl was carrying. The waitress apologizes profusely as she pulls out napkins to help Ruby dry up, but Ruby waves it off and takes responsibility for the mishap. Ruby says she'll go dry up in the bathroom, and the waitress offers to go get more napkins. They cross each other going opposite directions, and it's framed very much like the earlier scene on the stairs. Ruby blinks and turns back to the waitress to ask, Hey, have I seen you? Only to find the waitress halfway across the room. Thinking nothing of it, Ruby shrugs and walks off towards the bathroom. However, we stick with the waitress, who is smiling smugly to herself, pocketing a keycard. Ruby's keycard, the one to access the vault. We cut back to Ironwood atop the control platform, picking up his pistol and holstering it before noticing the black smoke spilling out from the center pillar. Eyes hardening, he reaches to redraw his pistol, but freezes when he hears, General James Ironwood. Ironwood closes his eyes in recognition, his breath shuddering as he steels himself. The smoke consumes the platform, and an eerie figure steps from it, footsteps echoing around them almost impossibly. Unmoving, Ironwood states more than asks. Salem, I presume. Salem casts her gaze around the mist, now an enclosing fog, then to the unconscious Arthur on the ground. A pity, she notes, almost indifferently. Always one to let ambition consume him. Ironwood spares a glance to the man, then back to her. Maybe you should pick your people more wisely. Salem puts a finger to her chin, not an insult, but an intrigue. Oh, that is what captivated me the most about him, about all of my errant children. An intensity. As she says this, we cut down to Mantle, where Nora and Ren are in hot pursuit of Tyrion, chasing him through apartment hallways before bursting out a window onto the streets. They're all devoted to a cause. Driven. We cut over to Malachite, still in her waitress disguise, merrily walking towards the door to exit the main hall. As she's about to leave, walking through the door is a second waitress who looks identical to her. There's a beat where the two lock eyes, and the power goes out. This content and the rest of the content on Celtic Phoenix is brought to you by the wonderful people supporting the channel through Patreon. For just $1 or more, you can gain access to the Tundra Discord server, where you can interact with me and a whole host of my fellow internet colleagues, such as the other members of Team Frostbite and the Team Jacked podcast. Become a part of our regular bad fanfiction nights that happen every Friday night at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time by joining our chat and adding your commentary to the reading. You can also join by becoming a member of the Celtic Phoenix YouTube channel, with the additional bonus of gaining access to a bunch of sweet emoticons during every one of our streams, such as the Team Jacked podcast, which airs every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But if either of those are too much for you, you can always subscribe to the channel, enable alerts, like this video, and share it around to all your friends. Thank you all so much for watching, and we now return you to your regularly scheduled fixing. They're all broken. Ironwood responds derisively. Salem leans her cheek into her hand, disappointed. Oh, you poor dear. All of you are broken. A pale facsimile of a better age. Something shifts in Ironwood's expression, subtle, but betraying a hint of surprise and confusion. He whisks it away with a glare. Let's cut to the chase, shall we? Salem frowns, but more so in disappointment than indignance. Impatient, though I suppose that's to be expected. Time makes adversaries of us all. Growing stoic and serious, she speaks. The relics and the maiden. Hand them over and Atlas will be spared. Ironwood doesn't budge. And I've got a bridge in Mistral to sell you. With a sly grin, she feeds into the remark. Presuming Mistral survives what comes next. Bold. You should accept my deal. Still strong, Ironwood replies. You're not offering anything in return. Sighing, Salem lets her shoulders fall like a disappointed mother seeing a fresh mess. I am offering peace, James. That is all I have ever wanted. This comment finally invokes a hotter rage from the general. Is that why you topple our cities? plague us with the grim, undermine humanity at every turn. I'm proud Ozpin chose me to rebuff the monster that's haunted us through our entire history. Squinting at him, Salem begins to pace in a circle around him. He never lowers his guard, but watches closely. Ah, the noble story of a stalwart defender. I love to hear how he changes it. What of my history did he twist this time? She stops at a quarter rotation, staring into the inky mist, rattling off words like they're nothing. The age of gods, the age of fairy tales, the age of mysteries. So many eras we both lived through, shaped. My dear, fallible husband has no shortage of stories to tell. That comment finally makes a solid crack, James biting out. Husband. We zoom in on Salem's face as it splits into a sharp grin. Of course. Ozpin made me the woman I am today. We cut away to the Atlas solstice party, the lights still out and the guests muttering in confusion and anxiety. Jonks is staring at Weiss, quite disgruntled, and Willow is looking out into the distance, sipping at her flute of champagne. A few weeks without my patronage and I can't even keep the lights on, he scoffs. Weiss frowns deeply, muttering, That's impossible. Jonks raises a brow to her. Hardly, you wouldn't believe how the military loves to waste funding. Now, where were we? Weiss isn't even paying attention, shaking her head and heading back towards where RWBY was. Both Jonks and Willow take note of her departure, with the former calling after her. Excuse me, we were in the middle of a conversation, young lady. Calling back to them, Weiss says, Mother, Father, stay here and stay safe. Jonks scowls after her, but Willow lays a hand on his arm and sends him a silent look to let her go. Wordlessly, he relents, but reluctantly. Weiss gets a glimpse of RWBY heading towards the bathroom and quickly follows after, and the camera rack focuses behind her. In the distance near the exit, we see the two waitresses still staring each other down. The two cautiously approach one another, before stepping forward sharply and beginning to fight. Unlike most fights in RWBY, this one follows a much more small-scale and intense pattern, that being similar to the Demetrios fight from Casino Royale. Both girls attempt to kill each other while keeping their cover, leading to a combat composed of short, sharp movements that would go unnoticed in the dark. Occasionally, the two are forced to break apart, during which Malachite attempts to make a break for it, only for the second waitress, revealed to be Neo thanks to a flicker of her eye colors, manages to catch up and corner her. They're both closely matched, but Neo's skill set is much more conducive to this sort of low-visibility scuffle. Using only a steak knife, she manages to overpower the damage reduction of Malachite's aura and cut her at the knee, followed closely by a counter move that slams Malachite's head into a wall and knocks her unconscious. Humorously placing Malachite's slumped form in a nearby chair, Neo roots through her pockets and locates RWBY's keycard. Pocketing it herself, she struts quickly out of the room. Ironwood's voice drifts over her exit. You're lying. We cut back to him and Salem in the mist, further along in their conversation, and he's still glaring at her. However, his eyes are beginning to quaver with doubt. He would never. Salem, meanwhile, is playing with the smoke, an extravagant, rickety tower at her fingertips as she replies. Never what? Seek to build a better world? Crown himself atop it to keep order and peace? To enlighten those below him? We both know that is not just within his nature, but his nature alone. She flicks her hand through the tower and it collapses in on itself, the smoke wafting into the dark. He clings to his role as guardian of our world, and just as much the warden to its prison. Looking over her shoulder at him, she continues. I offer to break those walls, and the sane recognize it as the only option. We cut back to Mantle where Tyrion is attempting to flee from Nora and Ren through the back alleys. Neither pursuers being particularly quiet or reserved, with Nora especially highlighting their route throughout the city with the explosions from her grenade launcher. It's no shock then, when after rounding a corner, they're met by Crow, Clover, and an entire squadron of Legion soldiers. With Nora and Ren pressuring him from behind, Tyrion looks around the intersection, and smiles sheepishly before raising his hands in surrender. Oops, he says wryly as two of the soldiers approach him. It really shouldn't be that hard to swallow. Salem's voice cuts back in. We arrive in the mist once more, and now it's James that's facing away while Salem observes him. She continues her taunt. His crusade has always been carried by the naive, pliant, obedient, incurious. You would trust a man who steals the faces he wears, if only because he gives you a sliver of truth. I offer only the whole truth, warts and all. James is staring at the ground, his eyes twitching between furious, confused, and despondent, leaving him apoplectic. Salem walks up behind him, her fingers coming to rest on his shoulders, lips to his ears. I free you from his petty lies. You are no longer bound to his will. So if you still wish to save Atlas, all you have to do is give me. Face furious, James turns on her, draws his pistol, and fires a single shot into her chest. The visage of Salem vanishes instantly, and the smoke begins to clear as her Sears dome hits the ground with a wet thud, a high-caliber bullet through its glassy membrane. James is left there alone, staring at the dissipating corpse of the Grim, hand trembling. He sucks in a ragged breath, and his hand stills. Holstering his pistol, he walks to where Watts is unconscious and grabs him by the scruff of his suit with one hand. We cut away to inside Atlas, where Roman is waiting near an elevator. Neo appears, a soldier disguise fading away as she approaches. She flashes Ruby's card, causing Roman to smile devilishly. Our last hard cut is to James piloting his Manta back towards the academy, Watts secured in a seat in the back. The general's eyes are empty, staring into the distant cityscape, lights still mostly off. The sun behind the mountain, barely a sliver, sinks below the horizon, taking with it the warm rays that illuminated both settlements. Large storm clouds begin to roll in, obscuring what little light remains. The last shot is of the old gate down in Mantle, where John and the Happy Huntresses are still in shock over Robin's death as the night consumes them. Darkness covers the monument and we fade to black, ending the episode.